The PS5 DualSense Edge controller and the Xbox Elite Series 2 core controller have been around for a little over a year now, and the debate as to which controller is better has never really got an answer. And after using both controllers for the better part of their life cycles, I've experienced the not so good stuff like poor battery life on the DualSense Edge, lack of haptic feedback and adaptive triggers on the Elite Series 2 core, then to the good stuff like the ability to change the tension of the thumbsticks on the Elite Series 2 core, and for the DualSense Edge, the ability to change the entire thumbstick module, just to name but a few. With all that in mind, plus so much more, let's unpack everything about these two controllers and find out which one is better. Buckle up and let's go for the ride. First things first, let's talk about the design differences, and starting with the controller cases, you'll easily pick up the Elite Series 2 is a tad bit smaller just from the size of the controller case. Now, while both cases look amazing design wise, they've got an aspect or two that make them better than the other. Personally, I prefer the hard plastic rubbery feeling of the DualSense Edge case with the PlayStation logo engraved in the middle compared to the hard fabric shell of the Elite Series 2 controller. When it comes to the zippers, once again the DualSense Edge case shines with the PlayStation logo engraved in the middle compared to the simple plastic handle on the Elite Series 2 case, but after you open them, that's where the Elite Series 2 starts to stick its neck out thanks to the wireless charger in the case, in addition to the cable pass-through at the front, which is way smaller compared to the Velcro latch on the DualSense Edge case. As for the accessories, they both come with interchangeable components, but more on that a little later in the video. Getting the controllers out of the cases, despite being smaller, the Elite Series 2 feels a tad bit heavier than the DualSense Edge thanks to the metal and textured rubber build compared to the plastic build on the DualSense Edge. Moving on to the features, the only two things they have in common are the interchangeable components and adjustable trigger stops. Once you step out of that, they both start flexing their muscles, and starting with the DualSense Edge, I can't get enough of the haptic feedback that's been immersing me into the thick of the action, whether I'm nailing a bucket in NBA 2K, walking through the subway in Spider-Man Miles Morales, or making a slide tackle in FC24. I feel every bit of it, not to mention the speakers that add to the immersion when playing online with mates by allowing me to chat and listen to everything even without plugging in my headphones. Another feature I've liked about the DualSense Edge over the past year is the ability to replace my thumbsticks in case I suffer stick drift. Touch wood, it never happens. The FN buttons have also come in clutch when switching through my profiles, not to mention their ability to reduce the volume in my headphones when I have them plugged in. I've also enjoyed using the adaptive triggers, which give me that satisfying feedback when pulling the trigger in Call of Duty or accelerating in Gran Turismo 7. When it comes to the Elite Series 2, the 40-hour battery life has been one of my favorite features over the past year, in addition to the wireless charging that comes with its case. Another great feature I've enjoyed are the back buttons, and even though both of them come with interchangeable back buttons, the Elite Series 2 has 4 compared to just 2 on the DualSense Edge. These have enabled me add more functionality to my gameplay after mapping them out to my liking. Talking of liking, I've liked the ability to adjust the tension of the thumbsticks in order to suit my preference, and that's not all. The price is also another thing worth mentioning, because for pretty much the same functionality, you'll be getting the Elite Series 2 for around 270 Australian dollars compared to 339 Australian dollars for the DualSense Edge. With the differences out of the way, we might as well take a deeper look into the haptic feedback and adaptive triggers that have made gaming using the DualSense Edge so immersive. Like mentioned a little earlier, this feature on the DualSense Edge enables you to feel the detailed in-game sensations, for instance, the pulling of a bow in Horizon Forbidden West, feeling the turbo jump in Astro's Playroom, just to name but a few. The Elite Series 2 on the other hand, despite lacking the in-game sensation, still provides solid rumble experience when playing games like Forza Horizon 5. As for the adaptive triggers, once again the DualSense Edge shines, and this is because they have allowed me to experience varying levels of force and tension, resulting in a super realistic gaming experience. While on the subject of triggers, we might as well talk about the trigger stops, and tell you what, this was an absolute game changer for both the DualSense Edge and the Elite Series 2, making the shift from a normal controller as it caters to your gaming needs exactly how you want it. For instance, when playing FPS games like Call of Duty, I've been able to get faster trigger responses as the trigger travels about 40% of the distance in the shortest mark position than in games like Forza Horizon 5. Flicking it back to the normal position makes accelerating so much easier. Moving further down the back, both these controllers come with remappable back buttons, and although the DualSense Edge comes with half dome and lever back buttons, you can only use a pair at a time, unlike the Elite Series 2 which accommodates both levers at the same time. In my opinion, while for the most part they offer the same functionality, the additional pair of levers adds extra functionality to my gaming arsenal as I can customize them to perform specific action in addition to the ones I already have. For instance, in a game like Forza Horizon 5, I use one of them to brake and the other to interact with the screen. In saying that, it all boils down to preference as some people would rather not use them at all. As for the build quality, they both look quite premium thanks to the metal build and the inside more or less the same way. Moving along, another area worth unpacking are the thumbsticks, and having touched on them in the differences a little earlier, we'll dive into them a little deeper. Now, just to bring you up to speed in case you missed it, they both come with interchangeable components in the form of high and low sticks, but each controller has its own advantage. Starting with the DualSense Edge, like mentioned earlier, the thumbsticks are replaceable in case you suffer stick drift, and if you'd ask me, this is by far one of the best features of the DualSense Edge, and the fact that it doesn't need too much technical know-how makes it even easier for a novice to do. All you gotta do is simply push the button underneath the thumbsticks to release the glossy faceplate, then pull the metal levers on either side, after which you'll remove your folded thumbsticks, slide in your replacements, then lock them in place using the levers, and finally lock the thumbsticks in with a glossy faceplate. To make it even better, they cost about $30 a pop, which is way cheaper than replacing an entire controller just because of stick drift. As for the Elite Series 2, it doesn't come with replaceable thumbsticks, but it's got another trick up its neck quite literally. Speaking of which, the Elite Series 2 allows you to adjust the tension of the thumbsticks using the provided pin, which to be honest, gives the joysticks a firm and steady feel while playing. I also like that the joystick caps are metal and attach magnetically on the Elite Series 2 compared to the plasticky ones on the DualSense Edge, which give off a rather cheap look. When it comes to compatibility, the Elite Series 2 casts a wider net compared with the DualSense Edge as it works seamlessly with the Xbox One, Series X, S and PC, supporting all of its features across these platforms, not to mention compatibility with some Android and iOS devices, although a bit limited in its features. I've also enjoyed the versatility it offers, especially when cloud gaming on other platforms. The DualSense Edge on the other hand is primarily designed for the PS5, although it can also play some PS4 games when connected via cable. In addition to that, some PC games can also be played using the DualSense Edge, although support varies depending on the game and additional software may be required to make it work smoothly. As for the battery life and charging of both controllers, this is one of the biggest gripes I have with the DualSense Edge controller. On a full charge, the DualSense Edge would last you anywhere between 4 to 8 hours depending on usage, compared to the 40 hours you get on the Elite Series 2 after a full charge. This obviously got me thinking, and after doing my digging, the extra features like haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, the speakers, just to name but a few, play a big role in that. In saying that shouldn't be a big problem for a company like Sony to fix when they eventually release the successor to the DualSense Edge. As for the Elite Series 2, it wins in this department in so many ways. First is the ability to charge wirelessly in its controller case, not to mention the detachable charging dock that allows you to charge wirelessly even when not connected to your console. Despite the stark differences, the one thing I like about their charging is they both come with really good quality charging cables. With everything about both controllers completely stripped down to the bare bones, we finally get to that question: which one is better? Given the advantages each controller holds against the other, be it the replaceable thumbsticks, trigger and haptic feedback, the speakers and microphone, all of this in favor of the DualSense Edge, then jump across the ditch to the Elite Series 2 and you get 40 hours of battery life, better compatibility with other platforms, an overall better build thanks to the premium materials, just to name but a few. This makes the argument quite nuanced. Now, if you'd ask me, this all boils down to your gaming preferences, as what works for me won't necessarily work for you, but in saying that, Versatility and battery life are the more overarching aspects when it comes to controllers in my opinion, and thus the Elite Series 2 core takes a nod over the DualSense Edge. Well, there you have it peeps. I hope you enjoyed and found this video helpful, and as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, share and click the notification bell to get notified whenever I post a new video. Here's an honest long-term review between the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X that will give you more perspective into these two ecosystems. Until then, people of the internet, I'm signing out. See you on the next one.